Internet, hello and welcome to Koicast, where I, a Bostonian, discuss pop culture, comic books, and my enjoyment of most people. I hope you're doing well. I am joined as ever by the enigmatic, the wonderful, the newly, formerly, and now returning East Coastian, Jake Lloyd Bacon. How you doing today, man?
Good. I don't know that I've ever been considered enigmatic.
I'm going to go enigmatic because I feel like there's a mystery to your, like, profundity. Like, you have, like, little insights, but also, like, I'm confused by, like, the little morsels that drop. I feel like that's very enigmatic when you're like, here's this thing I know.
It sounds like it sounds like you're very nicely saying I have a ton of useless information in my head. Is that what you're?
Well, I would say that boomers would say we both have a ton of useless information.
That is a very fair point. Absolutely,
I would say this very show that we're both doing is full of enigmatic, quote unquote, interesting facts that may or may not be relevant to anything but us and our listeners.
I guess I just feel like when I think of enigmatic, I think of someone who is hard to get a read on, and I feel like I wear my heart on my sleeve. I feel like I'm pretty much an open book for the most part. I'm very public with probably 80% of my life. I talk about publicly without, hiding too much. I don't think I'm enigmatic, but you know what?
You also read
like
as a curmudgeon, but you genuinely like things. So I disagree. I think like the way you walk around is like dislike, but then you realize the dislike is coming from a place of like,
okay,
which is very enigmatic.
Here we go. You know what? I'm not enigmatic. I'm what's another word for like not being able to be labeled? You can't put me in a box is what I'm trying to say.
You're contradictory, which is enigmatic.
But that makes it sound like I'm just contradictory for the sake of contradiction.
No. You're not contrarian. You are.
Oh, okay. All right. Is there a difference between those two words?
Oh, 100%. I would say a contrarian is an ironic hipster, and someone who is contradictory is someone who seems one way and reads the other, and that's more on the eye of the societal beholder. You know what I mean?
All
like,
right.
I am always fascinated by people that are, like, you assume someone that's jacked is really dumb. Like, that kind of thing where it's like, that's societal.
Now
like,
why is that a thing you think about a lot?
Because when I was an actor and I spoke in anything but monosyllabic terms, I was immediately questioned.
You pretty dumb idiot.
Yeah, like I struggled with the like, oh, he has long hair, he must be a stoner. When I had long hair, cut it. Now it's like, oh, this jock, and I'm like, okay, you know what? Like there's no putting us in boxes.
You can't. You need to just wear looser sweaters.
That's true. I think enigmatic comes from my own self-consciousness of not being able to label myself publicly. Like I can't wear the uniform of whatever I'm supposed to be, and that's also why I hate The Big Bang Theory.
There we go. I do want to just see, people don't get to see our digital connection here. I want to just explain to people that not only do I have a fantastic view of Koi, but Spidey Cat is on his lap, and I am just seeing just his face staring up, wanting to play with the microphone in that way that a cat does, like half, like non-committally, like, oh, and the little reaching, just like I'm gonna touch it, but eventually, I don't know how to.
But not really worth moving.
No,
like it's just the acknowledgement of like that would be.
He
cool.
is so goddamn cute right now and so content with his little face. Look at he's
so
he's
happy
half
that
asleep.
I'm home.
He's half asleep, is what he is.
Oh yeah, he's like in my lap, just going like, "Dad's home, Dad's home. I should play, but Dad's home," and then every so often chirping.
One of the we'll get to pop culture soon here, people. I promise. One of the things that since I've had not a ton more time here, but there are a few things that I'm just not doing as much in New York. I'm not auditioning. I'm not doing commercial work a lot since I've been here. So I have a few more hours in the mornings. So I've decided to start like really training bookstore, like going to the park and spending hours and working on recall and working on, a proper heel and working on all of these things. And when I tell you that that dog is so stupid, I mean, I love him so much, but he is just the dumbest creature you've ever. He's just a sweet, beautiful, dumb man. He's just like your worries about.
I like
everybody.
What I
goes,
look like.
He's so handsome. Look how handsome this dog is. Yeah,
sweet, beautiful, simple man.
A ton of bricks. Just nothing happening up there.
It's so hard when you like it's nice to accept, but it's also there's something where you're like, have I failed? Like, what did I do? How did this? Like, my cat is not smart. I love him to death, but like, I get it. Like,
cats are just what they are.
That's true.
You don't have a lot of control over what your cat's gonna end up being like.
I'm very lucky my cat is sweet. I just wish there was more than just sweet I could offer.
He does look real special right now.
I mean, right now he's like half awake, sideways, slurping into
so
like
funny.
This is just my
All
baby
right.
boy.
Anyways,
So, all right, pop culture. These poor people that have no visual reference to our own excitement about our animals.
It's halfway through November here.
It is jarringly. I mean, the end of the year always feels like it speeds up as it should be slowing down. I feel like there's a memory of when things got into a beautiful lull that our childhood allowed because time off from school. There was always that wonderful feeling of like, I'm bored. And boredom doesn't happen as an adult, much less at the end of the year where it feels like it's just a existential panic skidding to a halt into the next year. I'm fully into the skid. I'm very aware that next week is Thanksgiving, and I'm even more aware that the days are roughly 7 minutes. So I'm having a real hard time adjusting to the daylight. How is that on the East Coast where you've added cold to it?
I have been. It's so hard to explain. There are obviously some. I just talked about how I'm an 80% open book. There's some things happening where it's like I'm not discussing openly, and it's strange because I feel like I'm doing nothing and too much all at the exact same time right now. And because of that, there's days don't occur. Like I wake up, I do a thing that generally would be one of 5 things you would do in a day. But after that one thing, somehow it's time to go to sleep.
I've had either those days or days where I look back and go, how did I do all that? And I'm proud of myself, but then I wake up tired for 3 days, so it negates the fact that that day was so good. Like if you had those days where you're like, you're really proud of your accomplishments, but then it like kneecaps you and you're handicapped for 3 days in some manner, whether it's mentally or physically. Like Friday, one of the things I want to talk about as we get into this is Godzilla -1, but Friday, the strike ended, so I had to immediately leap back into tons of coverage because like we didn't know it was going to end that day, which is such a blessing I'm so excited about. But the Marvels and Loki decided to, end on the same day, and the strike ended. So all these channels that I'd been saying no to because I didn't have like prior contracts, and I'm a man of like, some honor, and I really wanted to uphold my end of not scabbing. But now the strike was over, and I need money because it's been a long strike. So all of a sudden I had double duty just from the floodgates opening, but also Marvels and Loki was like triple duty. And then that same Friday, those things aired Thursday, I had the U.S. premiere of Godzilla -1, a property I'm extremely proud of and like something I was very honored to do. But that day ended up being if you guys don't know LA something that can take 12 miles. Miles don't matter. It's minutes, and 12 miles at the wrong time can literally be 2 hours. I had to be up at 6 in order to film on the west side, which took 2 hours to get to, for 3 hours, and then come back and drive to Burbank, which is further east than I currently am, and film for 3 hours, and then make it back to Beverly Hills at the DGA for the Godzilla premiere for a 6-hour event. So I literally was live, like presenting or performing, like I was on for a 12-hour day with roughly 5 hours of commuting, and I was so tired this week, and this was 2 days ago. I'm still in sweatpants today because I'm so like, I tried to go for a hike yesterday, and it was like walking in daylight. I'm so physically broken.
You can say no to things,
I need the money. I need the money, Jake. These were all paid things. Also, the Godzilla -1 thing was such an honor. Like that was obviously that wouldn't be the thing I said no to, but it was really cool because not only is Godzilla -1, I think my favorite Godzilla movie, it might be my favorite monster property.
Ooh.
It's able to balance incredible heart and a lot of the Godzilla's always been a metaphor for war, and I've always really loved what he can represent as an entity in culture, both American and Japanese and worldwide. Like there's this universality to Godzilla that I've always appreciated, and the metaphor can either be really heavy-handed or like, yay, monsters. And this movie managed to make a lot of the metaphors I think have felt heavy-handed really heartfelt, while also being one of the most awe-inspiring Godzillas I've seen, and it was done for like $10 million. This movie cost the crafty budget on a Marvel film, and it's so good. So like that was just an honor, but as far as my part of the job, it's hard to describe. Like some people think hosting is just talking, but it's not. And in this case, it was coming up with questions that were both impactful for Japanese audiences and American audiences, but also were things they could discuss without spoilers, but also could be translated with the right emphasis and like language. So I would have to ask a question, and then I would insert certain cadence beats and then listen for the translation and hope that the language was similar enough for that cadence so I could tell when they were going to go into the English, they would then translate it to the audience, and then I would have to receive that information in real time to do my yes and. So it's like a 3-step process from a normal 1-step process. So it was really, really cool, but like the challenge was great because it was like opening a new pathway of RAM in your brain, like in real time. Like I've got to assess, I've got to adjust, I've got to make sure the audience is entertained while like people are literally just paused waiting and adjusting, and make sure all the questions that I'd formulated in a void, like I'm not able to know how they're going to answer, are still relevant. So it was one of my favorite jobs ever because I was effectively in this case, like a U.S. ambassador to Toho Japan, representing the release here that's going to air in Japan, as well as like American audiences enjoying this iconic American Japanese character. But that was after doing 6 hours of Loki and Marvels, one of which I loved and one of which I didn't.
Right. And is the idea that was like recorded to be shown in Japan? Is that? So
it was recorded to be shown in Japan, but also live streamed to Japan, real-time subtitled.
Got it.
So I had to also work on my own cadence for, those poor interpreters going like, what does this white man say?
I like the idea that the subtitles for you started with, it says like, so when you tackled this project, and then it's just a bunch of question marks because they were only able to get the beginning of the question. Like,
in my experience,
like
context clues.
Yeah, Godzilla means to me, blah blah blah. Now, what does it mean to question mark, question marks, question mark?
And then their response, and everybody has the context of
Wait a
minute. Must have asked that.
You know what? I'm being so stupid. Do they use a question mark in Japanese language?
It must be their
own
symbol,
right? Yeah, I said question mark.
The other thing is,
you get it.
It was also like referring to him as like one of the actors as a Kamiki-san, and making sure that I use the right formal,
saying it right,
and you only say their first name when introducing them. You never use their full name again, and certain things like that are logical. But since I know how important it is, it felt way like harder to be like, remember, don't mess this up. Well, like I wouldn't in an interview ever go like Jake Lloyd Bacon, but in my head I was like, I might.
It's the thing where it's like if you tell yourself, think about your breathing, all of a sudden you just can't breathe again. It's like
it was that. I was I gotta call him Takashi. I would never call like David Fincher Dave, but in my head I was like, I'm gonna be too casual.
Right.
But Godzilla -1. I know you like Godzilla as well. It is so special, dude.
I'm excited for that. That's gonna be fun.
I would recommend that over most things that have come out this year as theater experiences. I know you don't make it to the actual theater as often. I rarely am like, this is a must. Obviously, it's a spectacle film, but this one is a must.
Yeah, that is definitely a like biggest screen possible kind of project.
It was cool. I got to see it for the first time. They screened it for me so I could write my questions, obviously, before the actual premiere. But it's so under wraps that I saw one of the first screenings in America, but it was at the place they were making the Atmos like perfectly leveled.
Right.
So they were like literally adjusting 36 speakers in a room with 5 chairs, and I was in one of 5 chairs with these 36 speakers, felt like I don't know, like Rage Against the Machine was making their album, and I was just like in it.
Nice.
So like the Godzilla roar would be like, "Rah!" And I was like, holy shit, I'm alive.
And then they're like, oh, that's too loud. We need to bring that down.
That's too much. This man is freaking out. He has had some sort of attack.
That's fine.
So yeah, Loki Day, Marvel's Day. It was also Godzilla -1 day for me. I know you haven't seen the Marvels yet, but I can spoiler-free say it wasn't my jam, and it was unfortunately the most ammunition I think the wrong side of YouTube could ever have. It's very unfortunate that when you cut corners, you should never cut this corner. Like there are properties where you can go like, we don't have to put our best people on it. I think their best people were put on it, and then their worst committees. Like I really love the casting. I love the director, and then they were like, what if we put it in a blender?
It feels a little bit too heavy-handed.
It feels like the studio
went,
okay, this 2-hour and 20-minute movie has to be 145 because I read 7 people say the last one was too long. Wow. Let's cut any sense of nuance and then allow the movie to just be this fluffy thing.
Right. That's unfortunate.
It's such a bummer because then that was the same night as Loki, and I went from maybe my least, not my least favorite, but definitely bottom 5, which is like low. My one of my least favorite to like one of my top favorite properties.
One of the best things they've ever made. All
one of the best hours of television I've lived. Like not just Marvel, but like the Loki finale is gobsmackingly good.
It's so good.
We're gonna talk about it in the Patreon pod.
Yeah, we'll talk all about it. Full spoilers on the Patreon pod.
That dichotomy, like it wasn't just like a lull where I feel like Quantumania kind of like after Love and Thunder, I was a little more prepared for each of them. Like one helped the other. That was full on whiplash. I was like, I am upset. I am elated. Like it was a lot. But
well,
that said,
I before we elaborate any more on that or move on from it, we have said for years we just want them to do comic books in the movies. We now have it. This is no different than comic books. We have like a storyline in Secret Invasion that, from what I'm told, they've kind of just omitted and just been like, that didn't happen. Just like in comic books, when there are storylines that they just move on from, and some things are good and some things aren't for good, or some things are good for you but not for other people, and vice versa. Guess what? We have it now. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is now just Marvel Comics. There are too many of them, and some of them are great and some of them aren't.
They did. Kevin Feige, you made the spinner rack in the cinema.
You did it.
And, for better or worse, let's adjust. Let's get that Ultimate Universe going.
The Cinerack.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
We're living in the Cinerack era.
That's exactly what it is now.
Which even sounds like a nefarious villain, like Cinerack.
Yeah. Cinerack. Yeah, I feel like Cinerack is definitely that's a Kirby character. That's like a
100%. I see the lines, the hard lines, and he's got a suit that kind of has the idea of like frames of film, but like not fully because it's Kirby. There's like an allusion to it.
Love it.
He also could be our villain from what was that incredible artist that did us as the different movie theater? Like I was Mr. Cinema, you were Streaming Man.
First off, you just butchered all of that.
I'm so sorry.
And,
I'm very tired.
And I love that you butchered all of that, because now they're gonna be like, "What the hell, man?"
I did all that work, and I this guy claimed he loved it. No, I loved it. I just have no memory right now. I literally have a note saying, "Talk about the Marvels and Loki," like I might have forgotten.
Great. All right. In any case, do you think that the hype, or not the hype, but the popularity of discussing the quote bad opening weekend for the Marvels is any more affecting MCU's things going forward than the Quantumania did? Or because it seems like every new movie is either like, oh man, this is their worst box office yet. Is superhero fatigue real? Meanwhile, it's like everybody who's saying that, like, they like the other things that come out. It's just
right.
Again,
then Guardians comes out, and then Across the Spider-Verse
right.
comes out.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah, it's always Marvel's back, Marvel's dead, and then you just copy and paste.
Yep.
I do think this time pretty aggressive adjustments are being made because the MCU shuffle that's coming. I'm not sure if you saw it, but next year everything has moved except Deadpool. Deadpool is now in July instead of May. Nothing's taking that May date from Marvel. I thought Cap 4 might. But they just announced Captain America 4 is getting 6 months of reshoots.
And that's
which is longer than the filming of Endgame.
That's New World Order?
Yeah. Or I think they're calling it Brave New World now because World Order is some sort of like white supremacist thing.
Well, yeah, I mean. Okay.
So
reshoots.
Cap 4 is getting 6 months of reshoots, longer than most production schedules and longer than Endgame, which was a larger film. I'm wondering if it's, just this, if it's a combination of like overall fatigue. I'm wondering if like test audiences, I'm wondering if it's a little too warmongery and we're kind of in tempestuous times in real life.
Right.
I'm curious if there are anything in that storyline that felt a little too close to home with, reality.
Right.
Kind of like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like that's a grounded story and it was dealing with reality. And then, oh wait, there's a virus with an antidote in the storyline.
Right.
And now it's very ironic that Cap, the Sam Wilson Cap, his two only properties have been like, well, the world's a little close to home. We're going to have to pivot.
But that's
when it's a character dealing with racism in America as Captain America already being a through line.
But I was going to say, but that's what makes the character great in hindsight is we all connected.
Oh, I mean, I think
we connected
as a
anyway.
Foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's like too much. I think it's like the cup's already 7/8 full and then like a war happens. They're like, oh, it's overflowing. Like we need this to be somewhat fiction. And that's I think what's happening at these reshoots, but that means it's coming out in 2025. They are weirdly moving Blade to not October 31st, which is right there, but November 7th of 2025. I'm like, guys,
so close.
What are we doing with Haunted Mansion coming out in the summer and Blade coming out right after Halloween?
Yeah, we talked about this in the last episode. Like,
literally, I thought of you. I'm like, remember Haunted Mansion? Let's do it again.
Come out on Halloween, dum-dum. It's a vampire movie.
I tweeted that and a bunch of people were like, maybe people are busy on Halloween. I was like, a lot of adults have time. Also drop it on Thursday.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Also, that weekend.
Nobody's ever busy on Halloween because they do the party whatever the weekend prior or after is. And Halloween's almost exclusively on a fucking weekday because you have a 4 out of or 5 out of 7 chance.
Effectively 5 out of 7 chance. And Halloween is like effectively 4 hours. So if you release it on Thursday, It's the move, guys.
It's also just
but
about
that said,
it's also just good marketing.
It's genius.
This
And
Halloween,
it's an R-rated movie, they confirmed, and they're doubling down on the horror. The R rating, I think, is also a reaction to not the Marvels directly, but I do think they're finally understanding that silly and wacky is not the only tone they should strive for. I think that we've had a lot of that, and Deadpool is tracking better than anything. They're doubling down, and that's their only property next year. Like, it's an R-rated film. The only Marvel movie come out next year is R-rated, which is crazy. I think the Echo trailer being TVMA, I think Deadpool tracking well, rated R, and I think now moving Blade to rated R, we're going to get, much like you said with the comics, like a Marvel Knights, a more adult oriented. Because I was saying the other day, like, if you were 5 years old when Iron Man came out, you're either legally able to drink or within 5 months of legally able to drink, because that shit dropped in May.
Right.
Like, you are
That's crazy.
21 in May at the latest. It is time to make these movies more adult as well as young, like new generation, sure.
But
also,
different properties.
We've been riding with it.
Yeah, different properties. Not everything has to be the same thing. There's lots of different
Blade
flavors
is
of ice
a
cream.
vampire. There will be blood.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I also feel like if there's anything that the recent run of Marvel properties has reinforced to me, it's a belief that I had post Phase 3, which was like, disconnect. Just disconnect. Like, not every single thing needs to set up the next thing, and not every single thing needs to tie into something else. Disconnect them. And then once you have decent stories individually being told, then you can figure out a way to bring those things together if you want. But I think the success of the Infinity Saga made it so that Marvel feels like everything needs to be interconnected in so many ways that I think they're shooting themselves in the foot. This is the thing that's annoying the shit out of me, is I have yet to see the Marvels. Seeing a review of the Marvels in which they and we talked about this with other Marvel movies too, in which the review of it is that mid-credit scene is incredible. Like, so that's
not the movie.
That's not the movie ended already.
Yeah.
The movie's over. The credits are rolling. You're literally excited about a commercial. Like, you're excited about a teaser
and that's
trailer.
The headline of or like a feature.
That's what I'm getting at.
Interview.
Yeah.
That's not, yeah.
I
don't mind it as a mention. It shouldn't be a highlight, though.
Disconnecting them. Yeah, disconnection.
Well, Marvel Searchlight, I don't know if you heard about that, but they're labeling certain things Marvel Searchlight, which is more unilaterally, or what's the right term? Like, it's to that unit. It's that one thing. So I think that's going to be special and smart. Like, we both adored Werewolf by Night because of that.
Yeah, disconnect this shit. Not everything.
And that's why I think DC, speaking of another cinematic universe, DC, I think is smart to keep their Joker 2 separate, their Batman separate, like keep things where it is different runs of comics. Next year is going to be only, ironically, it's crazy, the only movies coming out next year for comic books are an R-rated Deadpool, an R-rated Joker, an R-rated Kraven, and Madam Web. So in a year where we've gotten like 10 Marvel properties that were all PG-13, we're getting 4 next year between the two houses, and 3 of them are rated R. I think that's a huge swing.
And one of them will be good.
2 might be, and 4 could be. But I mean, that's exciting. Like, you just look at the data. Like, 4 R-rated movies, and 4 R-rated. And
that's from the big 2.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure there's other stuff that's not on the top of my head, but that's so DC. I think by the end of the week, maybe even by the time this airs, I do feel like we'll have some more Superman casting, because they're keeping their release date even with the strike, which means they were probably writing as soon as the writer's strike ended. They had already cast before, but they're going to be filling that roster out with casting that was already done. So now that the strike's over, I imagine by the time this airs, we'll be hearing some Superman stuff. I also hear that Fantastic Four is all but locked, so I think we'll hear about that soon. Definitely by the end of the year, maybe by the end of the month. But yeah, I mean, everything's cooking. I just do think Marvel is looking at adjusting more aggressively than they ever have. They've always listened, but I think now it's like pivot, like it's a big old like shift.
It sounds like that's just the only news there is ever out of Marvel. It's Marvel's changing again. They're changing the plan. Like, they've never not changed their plan.
That's how they're still making the Guardians money. Even
Phase 3, when they first announced it, none of those titles were what they ended up being.
Yeah, and Inhumans was in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's so, like, it's all they ever do is change. This is sort of like the hype machine problem that I've spoken about, where it's like, I try not to get excited for anything that's not, that there isn't a trailer for right now. That like, there's no point in being excited for an X-Men movie that hasn't even been made yet.
And even if it is shot, sometimes it doesn't come out. And we'll talk about that after this next hotline call.
Oh, yeah. You want to take a hotline call?
Let's do it.
Hey, Coy. Hey, Jake. This is Gilbert up in the Bay Area. I wanted to ask about something that at least CBS is doing. I saw it from... I was watching The Challenge, which is the only reality show I watch, but it's a fun one. So, anyway, I digress. They're bringing Ghosts UK and Yellowstone to CBS, one of which is obviously not from the US, and the other one is from cable, to CBS. And I'm assuming this is because of the strike. But do you see this as something that they will do more often after the strike ends, using shows and properties from ancillary sources instead of producing all their own stuff? Or do you see this as something that's just strike, something that's caused by the strike that will just go away once the strike ends? I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. Bye.
I love this question because it ties directly into one of the headlines from today. It is a very interesting time for art and commodification of it and content, those being, different things. Content, and Jake was literally one of the biggest proponents of getting this concept into my head. Content is definitely a commentary on art. It is definitely stuff that is to be consumed. It is, in my opinion, reality TV, but I know a lot of people feel it's art. And it is edited and narratively written as art, but it's certainly content to me. But content to me is something that can be shuffled around and doesn't quite have that same emotional impact. Whereas I do think art should be revered in a way. And the David Zaslav situation with the Acme movie written by James Gunn, co-written by James Gunn, and starring John Cena, that was a hybrid of Roadrunner and John Cena, like an IRL thing, much like Scooby-Doo. A movie I rewatched this Halloween, by the way, that absolutely still slaps. James Gunn writes the hell out of Scooby-Doo 1 and 2 and directs the hell out of the second one. Those movies own so fucking hard.
I haven't seen them. They came up in conversation recently, and Alexandra mentioned that she hadn't seen them. And it's crazy to me because she loves Buffy so much, and she loves her. And she did not realize that they were James Gunn did that. And I was like, yeah, I said, that's the only James Gunn movie I've never seen. And she went, wait, what do you mean? And I was like, yeah, that's James Gunn. So now it's been on our watch list. I don't know when we're going to get to it.
It is so much. Like, I knew I loved it. I just had assumed, like, I loved it at that age.
Right.
And then my little sister and my dad rewatch it like twice a year. Like, they love that movie.
That's a lot.
Both of them. It's a lot. And so my little sister was in town and we were talking about Halloween movies and she just mentioned Scooby-Doo because me and Matt Lillard, Matt Lillard just had Five Nights at Freddy's. We've got some con stuff. And so like Matt kept coming up and she was like, let's watch Scooby-Doo. And I was like, you know what? Let's watch Scooby-Doo. And 5 minutes in, I was like, I think this is actually better than I remember. Like, this is exceptional. So suddenly that Acme movie rose to the top of my list of like, I'm super excited for this because the tone, I think John Cena's great. I think he's a real life cartoon. Like, he's so, charismatic and literally larger than life. Like, what a fun.
Right.
And then Zaslav last week just was like, well, tax write-off, that's not coming out, and just shoved it in the vault like he did Batgirl. And that is a disgusting abuse of power for someone that's trying to basically run something into the ground and then sell it off for parts. Like, that's all this dude is doing. At any point, he can just like cut tail and run. And these people literally spend thousands of hours and years of their lives on something. And this dude is just like chucking shit. So I see this as the worst example of CEOs that are bottom line people that are just like, well, fuck art. And the people of the internet rallied and said like, hey, no. And now the movie is being sold. So it will see the light of day. There's a giant bidding war right now. I think Paramount's in the lead. And that means most likely theatrical release. And I personally will be buying. I have AMC A-List. I always buy a ticket for every movie I get invited to a screening to because I want to support the movie like I would have if I hadn't gone to the screening. And often I'll go see it again, but I always want to at least buy the ticket. I have decided this movie will be the movie that if I have any extra ticket on my thing, as long as that shit's playing, I'm fucking buying a ticket. I want to bury this fucker. Like, I want this movie to make so much money to show like, hey, release shit. Now someone gets to profit off Warner Brothers property because you were too close-minded to let it come out. Yeah. So I personally think we're going to see a lot more of this as we lose the idea of what art versus content is. I think we're going to see a lot of people having to share stuff like the Batman animated series. That's the original BTS team. That's going on Amazon. I also think we're going to see some really interesting stuff very soon because Invincible started airing and there's a certain cameo from a certain Marvel character in that show. And he also has an Amazon show, so I could see a very interesting crossover there. So I do think we're going to see a dispersal of content, and I think that's kind of something that's going to keep monopolies at bay a little bit because they're going to have to learn how to share. But it's a really interesting time in art.
Yeah, to Gilbert's point, too, about like CBS pulling in other cable networks, and then obviously, they're the producers of the American version of Ghosts. I can only assume that they're some sort of partners with, I don't know BBC, I don't know which channel made Ghosts UK, I don't know, you know what I mean? But I'm going to assume that they have some sort of working relationship if they're producing American versions of the same goddamn show. And to me, this just seems like the Netflixification
100%
of every individual streamer, because yes, CBS Paramount Plus is your one-stop shop for all of the Paramount family shows, so you can get all of your Comedy Central, all of your CBS, all of whatever other networks. But why not be like, hey, this is also the only place where you can get this show that you're used to that's from USA Network or I don't know where Yellowstone is from, but it seems like CMT.
Suits was USA, so that's
okay. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, why not? It's all about having the exclusivity. It's all about like, this is the spot for that. And, we talked about this once too, like they should also maybe just trade stuff. This is how distribution used to work on TV.
Syndication.
For movies. Well, no, I meant for movies where like...
Oh, I understand.
Where like, yeah, you have the rights to this movie to play as many times as you want, or depending on a contract with this many times per year or per month or per week, whatever it is. And then there's an expiration date on that contract unless it's in perpetuity, but like that will end. And then that movie could then go to another network or have something else. So now it's just that for TV shows, for movies on a specific platform. We've seen this happen with like the acquiring of like Friends and stuff and Seinfeld on Netflix, where it's like, oh, this is in a contract for this, or The Office being pulled from things so that it could be a Peacock exclusive, stuff like that. So,
and this is why you buy physical media.
Here's the thing: is that I don't think it's just because of the strike, and I don't think
I just think we're seeing it in the news
end.
more because of the animosity towards the studios. It is a tale as old as time. I just think it's getting more heated because of the disregard. That's what I'm speaking to.
I guess
the present.
The point I'm trying to make is that I think this, to Gil's initial point, I think it's a good thing. I think this is good. Like,
same.
I think this is for the best because more people will be able to benefit from the art that's being created, and it creates commodity. Now, the problem comes with, I don't think it's that big of a deal when it comes to big shows like this, but in my experience as an independent filmmaker, not just working on my own movie, but having worked on other people's movies in the marketing side of things, the issue where you have these bundle distribution packages where, okay, here you want, let's use Yellowstone as an example because he brought it up. The problem comes when it's like, oh, I don't know who owns Yellowstone. I'm going to make up that Universal. Let me see, Universal owns Yellowstone. I'm just going to make that up. I don't know who does. Don't at me, bro. They say, oh, hey, Paramount, you want Yellowstone on your network? Great. It's only available. Let's say and it costs, $250,000. They were like, we want to pay you the $250,000 for Yellowstone. And they say, oh, unfortunately, it's only available as part of this package with 10 other shows that nobody wants, that you don't want. And it's only available for $1 million for the entire package. So now they went from a $250,000 show that they just wanted one of to now having to take 9 other, IPs or whatever that diminish the value of their service. That's going to be the problem. That's what happened to Netflix. That's what happened to Amazon Prime. And that, that's what we need to avoid. But I like that shit is elsewhere and that people bring in stuff from other companies. We want that. That's good. That's good distribution. It also means that you don't have to have every goddamn fucking streamer all at the same time.
Right, which is something that now that Netflix is $25 a month, I'll be shuffling a bit more.
Wait, because it's 25. Is it really going up to $25 a month?
It went up to 23 and then $2 tax in here. So I just literally saw my bill and it was $25.
Oh,
I mean, I just rejoined because I had canceled it because I didn't.
I might have been grandfathered.
You might have gotten grandfathered because
I
don't
think
know if it's gonna go up.
I'm pretty sure I'm still only paying like $12 or something like that for Netflix.
Yeah, no, I literally canceled because of the strike, and they being a huge reason it lasted so long. I was like, fuck you guys, and then I just rejoined because of
you
Gilbert's.
you really showed them.
Hey, I did what I could. I have only so much
They're
power,
like-
Jake.
they're like-
I didn't want them.
They're like, oh, thanks, you didn't give us the $9 you were paying us for 10 months. And now you're going to pay us all of that back in 3 months because we're upping your fucking shit.
It felt good to not be paying the people causing the strike, okay? It felt like I did what I could. I was marching and I was canceling shit. I was doing what I could.
I respect it.
I'm only one man, but then Bill Burr's movie came out as well as the Killer, so I had to make choices.
Well, at the end of the day, I think this is good. And
absolutely net positive. But yeah,
also,
great question, great call.
Also,
we got another one up there.
No, before we do that, you were talking about the Scooby-Doo movie, and you're talking about Lillard, and I want to have a zoinks off. Give me your best zoinks.
Oh, okay. Zoinks?
All right, pretty good. It was like a question. Yours.
It was an insecurity.
Yours was all right. Here we go. Let's try this. Okay. Zoinks.
Oh, that's exceptional. Mine was like half Scooby, half Shaggy. Yours was pure Shaggy.
I've been told that I'm pure Shaggy before. All right, let's see what we got in the hotline.
Yeah, let's see who's next.
Hello, Koicast. This is Mask Llama of the Legendary Fighting Federation. And I was just thinking the other day, I was on a road trip, I had a lot of time to think, about how much I loved the Nightfall storyline from the 90s. The one where Batman's back gets broken and Azrael has to take over the mantle of the Bat for a while. And then I was thinking about how Battle for the Cowl came about 15 years later. Don't fact check me on that time frame. And it just felt like a cheap cash grab. And so I got to wondering, what were some of your favorite or least favorite passing of the mantle stories? Someone else takes over the outfit, the costume, the identity of the superhero. I was just curious what your thoughts on it were. Have a good day, y'all. Bye.
Another one that was tied into a news story. Thank you. This week a new Punisher #1 dropped, and I hadn't been following it because I just assumed it was Frank Castle. The last Punisher run was one of the best ever. A lot of people hated it, but it's literally one of my favorite 12-issue comic runs. It is an exceptional run of comics. So I was very excited for a new Punisher #1. And then it's a new guy, and it's not great. It's fine. It's okay. I think the bar was really high. I think if I had just read a Punisher run and then there was a new Punisher, I'd be like, okay, whatever. I'm not that tied to it. Right. I've been a casual Punisher guy for years, and this one run, I was like, I think I fucking love Punisher. I think going from a high to they did the John Bernthal take so well to this mixed with Daredevil, but then then this new run is he's a SHIELD agent, and it's the suit is they're trying to make it so his belt, the pouches, there's 3 of them that are a little longer, and then he's got kind of this shoulder harness, but then weirdly there's a center chest piece. So it's a Punisher skull, and when I first saw it, I was like, fine, whatever. People redesign shirts all the time. But then they called it out in the issue, someone calling him the Punisher, and then he was like, guess I'm stuck with that now. I'm like, it's very obvious. You can't pretend that's not it bothered me that it treated me like I was dumb. The issue just didn't sing as much for me. So I love this question because I think when a legacy character is done in a way that feels like it's in reverence and appreciation of the OG, that feels like even if it's not great, I can respect it. When it feels like it's hey, we want to bring in a new character or revitalize an old unnamed grunt and try to make it important. And that's what this feels like. Maybe it'll get better. I always give comics 3 issues to get warmed up. But for now, I think the love of the character is so essential to legacy. I think there's a reason Miles Morales. I've been actually looking at my old Miles Morales issues, and a lot of them are worth more than Spider-Man from that the Spider-Man main title from that same time.
Interesting.
The Miles title is often more valuable than the mainline Spider-Man title. So Miles Morales' first appearance is obviously huge because of everything, but I didn't expect a random Miles Morales 8 to be worth more than Spider-Man 612 that was out the same week.
I wonder why that is, because I would assume that at that time, production was just huge. I would assume there were so many issues of them out there.
That's why I was shocked that I figured it'd be the other way, where it's like, well, we got a new guy, so we'll have to pump him out. But instead,
maybe it's because
I think
survive.
they just. Yeah, I think it's because like the people were buying them and then dropped off, and then some issues would like spike. Whereas Spider-Man, I think of as like a steady subscriber base like me. Like I currently am not in love with the regular Spider-Man run, but I'm gonna keep buying.
But you're
Whereas
right.
I think a Miles run, people might dip in and out, and therefore some issues become more valuable. But there's some crazy expensive Miles issues.
Right.
So I think legacy characters, like I know a lot of people consider Miles Morales their Spider-Man, and Peter Parker like a Spider-Man that's like old and makes dumb jokes. Like I think it's lovely that character is as, or depending on your generation, more popular. I think of Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, and Jon Stewart before I think of Hal Jordan.
Right.
Like all three of them. Like, and that's, I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's blasphemy, but when I started reading Green Lantern, my first Green Lantern was Kyle Rayner. So I don't think you can obviously intuitively know that it's Hal Jordan. You can like read the comic and be like, that's the guy. But if it wasn't your first exposure, I don't think that it necessarily will be your guy unless you pick up the right run and it feels more impactful. Right. So personally, I think legacy needs to be handled carefully, but I love this question because I do think it's relative.
Yeah. Speaking of Punisher and Frank Castle, I think one of my favorites is your boy Donny Cates' Cosmic Ghost Rider.
Oh, so fun, dude.
That's an example too of like, okay, it's not the Ghost Rider that we're familiar with. It's a Ghost Rider, and it's also that character. I like that it's a new mantle. In that
and that's
way.
done with love. That's that reverence. It didn't feel like it was shoehorned.
I still haven't read. I really want to still read Paul Scheer's.
It's so funny.
Cosmic Ghost Rider kills the Marvel Universe, or it's the same thing with Deadpool, or like something like that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I would only want someone like Scheer to take over like that run, because otherwise, then it is that like okay cash cow. But instead, it's like what a genius take, and it was.
Yeah, I still haven't read that yet. I gotta.
It's quality. I mean, it's Paul Scheer. What a delight that guy. You've worked with him, I assume.
He directed the Marvel 616 episode that I played Agent Coulson on.
Oh, I remembered he directed you, but like I mean, like writing and comedy wise, I would have assumed you guys would have.
No, we crossed paths in comedy a long time ago, but he was already like
Stratosphere.
Well, no, not even Stratosphere, but he was already like somewhat more established and doing sketch, and I was doing stand up, and so like when I first got to LA and I attempted to work alt rooms and couldn't find my people, we had crossed paths, but in a way that when I then worked for him, when I was directed by him, I didn't even say like, hey, you might remember me, because there's no fucking chance in hell that, you know what I mean?
Because we walked by each other 4 times.
Or like we were in the same green room like once or twice, but it was a decade prior, you know, like, but no, I haven't read a ton of his comics either. And there's so many, that's one thing that we don't really talk about a lot, is like there's this huge crossover of our worlds, and that like one of my favorite people in the world of fucking comedy, producers, personalities, Scott Aukerman, writes such great fucking comics. Like obviously Brian Posehn has written a ton of comics.
Brian Posehn's some of the best Deadpool ever. Him and Jerry Duggan.
Yeah, there's so many great like comedians who write for comics. You know, it's a weird thing that you would think I'd be more obsessed about, is like getting them all and reading them all. But you know, listen, there's a lot of art out there.
Before we get to our last call, I also want to give some love to Aman Vellani, who has not just one of my favorite Miss Marvel miniseries out, and you guys know how much I love Miss Marvel. I've been saying since long before they announced the show, hey, you guys should read Miss Marvel. So like this is not said lightly. It's not just one of my favorite Miss Marvel miniseries. She is writing one of my favorite X-Men miniseries right now. Aman Vellani herself is writing Miss Marvel, the New Mutant, and it not only makes me forgive them for not making her an Inhuman so they can shoehorn her in as a mutant, it actually makes it so lovingly endearing that I'm like, it's worth all the continuity mess and kind of disarming the Inhumans. Like, it's charming, it's funny, it feels like a world that hates and fears them in a new original way. I'm liking it more than Krakoa, and it ties continuity in some really wonderful ways, using how much knowledge Aman Vellani has of the TV and comic universes.
Okay.
It's one of the best. Like, she's such a good writer. And it's only on issue 3. So it's a 4-issue miniseries. Very easy to jump on. It's called Miss Marvel, the New Mutant, and I couldn't recommend it more.
It'll be in a trade before you know it.
Yeah, it'll be a trade in like 2 months, and I think that's when I'm going to really start pushing it, because I think it's a great gateway, and I think comics are more intimidating. So once that's in a trade, I'm actually going to reach out to Aman's people and try to get her on something, and like go like, I know the strike's over. I know she can talk about it. I want to talk about this comic.
Totally, yeah, comic. Yeah, let's talk about the comic. Let's talk about anything else, just the comic.
I feel like everyone's going to call about like the Marvels, and I'm going to be like, I'm going to wait 2 months, and I'm going to talk about that goddamn comics. It's so good.
Fantastic. All right, let's take one last hotline call today.
Sweet.
Hey there, boys. How you doing? It's Ben from Montreal. I hope you're having a great day. I hope your spooky season is carrying over all the way through November. I have a suggestion for you guys. I remember being so impressed when they did Superior Spider-Man, so Doc Ock, inside Peter Parker's body. And Coy, if you want to give us a little bit of additional information on that series, please do. But it's something that I've always been curious. What other characters do you think would work well with somebody else's personality inside, but really being able to create a storyline? So, of course, we can always go Aunt May inside the Rhino's body, but I think it would be a short-lived story. What character do you think could use that spin, that momentum, and who it doesn't have necessarily to be a villain, but I think it's a nice concept on which to play on. So in any case, my friends, thank you. Have fun. Goddamn, stay sweaty. Later.
Great question, man. I personally
Superior question.
Superior, in fact. Good call. I personally, I know you said no villain, or it doesn't have to be a villain in the hero's body, but I didn't love Superior Spider-Man. I thought it went too long. I thought it should have been a what if. I thought it was definitely something in the main universe that didn't quite work. I know a lot of people love it. As a what if, I'm okay with it, but it's not my thing. That said, I was about a year into it. It lasted fucking 3 or 4.
That was Dan Slott, right?
Dan Slott, yep.
And he gets a lot of hate. Was he the
he
guy
also invented the Spider-Verse. He's
right.
a big
but
a lot of the adaptations are his.
Is he the guy who people got mad at for killing people?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
I
just want to make sure. I want to make sure I'm in the right spot. Okay, so
same guy. But about a year into that run, I had an idea, and I've thought about it since. And I kind of don't want to say it, but I'm not going to write it probably anytime soon.
Before you do that, can you elaborate on? Because I did not read the Superior. I know from context and from being a nerd what occurred, but can you elaborate on what that roughly loose? I know it went on for too long, but
so in Superior Spider-Man, Spider-Man has finally beat Doc Ock, but Doc Ock has uploaded his consciousness externally, and through a series of events, Spider-Man gets basically taken over by Doc Ock's mind. It's able to hijack his brain. Right. But a few issues in, 2 issues in, we realize that Peter Parker's all still in there. So basically, Doc Ock is Spider-Man, and he's speaking, he's talking, he's Spider-Man, but his conscience is kind of Peter Parker, and Peter Parker's fighting to get out of his mind. It's got new characters introduced. Some of the stuff's fun. It's an interesting commentary and responsibility. It deals with a lot of science that I like, but overall, it went, I think, too long. And I also feel like, again, if What If could have lasted as a side title, or if they had a Superior Spider-Man title running alongside Spider-Man, a curiosity. But basically, Spider-Man is Doc Ock for a very long time. And about a year into this run, I was like, yeah, this is interesting, but I had an idea. And DC, I'm going to say, hey, this is mid-November 2023. If I see this in 2 years, if I see it in a year, I'm crediting it now. I love the idea of establishing how to finally show Lex Luthor the humanity of Clark Kent is by putting him in Clark Kent's body by way of Kryptonian technology. Literally use the Kryptonian concept you established in The Death of Superman. You had that protector of him be able to put his body out, have something where that concept is able to put Lex's mind, maybe a dying Lex, maybe a Lex that's literally trying to hack into Superman, something using that parallel. And you have Lex realize that Clark isn't just trapped as Superman because of kryptonite, which is what you always use, but he's always trapped hearing all the horrors of trying to protect the city that you claim you want to protect. Have Lex realize empathy for Superman because Lex is always like, I don't trust this alien coming into my world. I don't trust this invader. Show him by putting him in the body of Superman. You don't even have to have Clark as a subconscious. Literally just the power that comes with being Superman would show Lex, hey, this is someone that could be the monster you think he is. This is someone that could, but instead you're overburdened with all of this purpose, and you're aware of all these stakes that he has at all times. And how people treat Superman, I think, would also be a great moment for Lex to realize like what it's like when people look to you that way, when people don't fear you and your money. I've always wanted to write like a 12-issue Superior Superman comic.
I mean, that's a fun little Big Two crossover.
Right.
But also, yeah, I mean, like and I think that's like, the Superior, are they always essentially like, not a body switch, but that sort of thing?
Something like that, where it's like they become, nefarious because of a mind.
Or like good becomes bad becomes good. Because it was also
yeah,
Superior
like there's
Iron
a Superior
Man.
Iron Man. Yeah, Superior Iron Man was like, he got taken over and he, was, he basically invented tech that was able to fix the planet, but then he like used the capitalism industrial complex to start like charging for it. So it's like, okay, you're helping, but like,
and that was a sort of a crossover. Wasn't there like, I always forget the planet that Venom is from. Isn't it? Didn't it have to do with like Venom tech? Like
I think Clintars were involved.
Clintar,
it's been about 10 years, but yeah,
tech,
I think you're right. But yeah, I've always wanted to write a Superior Superman because I think that'd be a really fun I think Lex story.
And I think when it comes to good Superior stories, if that's sort of our crux, is like, well, it's about a position change or somebody getting to utilize somebody else's position, body, whatever you want to call it. I think like people that are in positions of power are the best stories. I think like a Superior Thor would be really fascinating.
That'd be fun. I like that.
To maybe again, all Elseworlds, because we don't, or like you said, what ifs more than
side story.
Yeah. But like, what if Loki got to actually just be Thor? Like, what would you know what I mean? Like Loki takes over the mind, or somehow like ends up maybe tricks Mjolnir into believing that he is worthy enough, and like
that's
essentially,
fun. I like that a lot.
Like what would how would Loki deal with the power of Thor? Essentially, like Loki, God of Thunder kind of story.
And then at the end, he thinks he's tricked Mjolnir, and at the end, the actual resolution is that Mjolnir did deem him worthy, and it's that he doesn't think that he's worthy, but he actually is.
But again, a lot of it too is it's like, and again, I know that Loki's in our lexicon right now because of the TV show. I'm trying to put all that aside, everything I know about it aside, but like Loki's he's always talking about the desire to rule Asgard, right? He gets to do that. Like Thor is always like, well, no, I don't want to be the king of Asgard.
Right. They both get what they want. You see how that plays out.
Exactly. Maybe it's just
that's fun.
Maybe it's just the two of them. Yeah, we're essentially they just end up swapping powers. So
I'm a sucker for a body swap.
Thor ends up, the god of mischief. But what other? I mean, Superior. That's a fun one. There's some good ones there. I also like the idea of like a Superior like Magneto, or like something in that space where it's like a villain who is already sort of super powerful.
Yeah, and also with some good tendencies.
But we get like the villain who's constantly, or I'm sorry, the good guy who's trying to explaining to them like that they're using their powers the wrong way. I don't know. Like I feel like Wolverine and Magneto, there's some connection there.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, use the magnet. Maybe the polarization of the Earth switches and Magneto gets popped into a metal body.
Oh my gosh, there we go. He turns inside out.
The last one I have is I think it'd be really fun to have a sidekick take over and vice versa, and it's a commentary on how like Batman doesn't respect all the work Robin does, and Robin doesn't understand the weight of being Batman.
This is just Freaky Friday. That's just Freaky Friday.
Yeah, but it's great. It's like Robin's in Batman's broken old sore body, and he's like, "Oh, my knees," and Batman's like, "Man, I do ask a lot of this Dick Grayson kid."
He's like, "Why does it take me so long to pee?"
This is I have to pee all the time too. That's just being old. But yeah, so that was a great question. That was really fun.
What other superiors are there in Marvel?
I think there's Iron Man, Spider-Man. Those are the only two that jump to mind. I'm sure there's at least three more.
I think Octopus. Was there also an Octopus? Superior Doc Ock?
Right now, Superior Spider-Man is a character his own.
Oh, interesting.
Like Doc Ock is there's a clone of Spider-Man's body that Doc Ock is in.
Oh, lovely.
Comics.
Comic books. Right on.
Yeah, the clone saga revitalized. Ben Reilly came back. There was a clone body. Doc Ock got in that body. He's his own man. It's a whole thing. They ruined Ben Reilly, like actually.
As mud.
Yep, here you go, guys. Comics. And that's why some things can't and shouldn't be adapted. All right, well, that is going to do it for our hotline calls. I do believe that is going to do it for our episode. Please check out the Patron pod. We're going to talk about Loki. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Marvels. We're going to talk about old dads and some other stuff this week, and then we got more for you next week.
Hey, tell the kids how they can call the hotline themselves.
I think they can call at 818-794-0722 or send a voice memo to contact@koicast.com. Also, be sure to check out the koicast.com store, because now we got some new stuff in addition to the normal variety of mugs and t-shirts and things you're used to be able to get in that store. Now we not only have new designs on those items, but we also have sweatshirts and some more dopeness you should check out. I think my favorite design that Jake has ever done is the two of our minds open
Pop
like
heads.
cookie jars.
The pod art, the new pod art, the pop heads.
Yeah, the new pod art, pop heads is my jam, and he might be making those for others, so you should hit those up because they're dope as hell. So yeah, that is going to do it for this week's episode. Please do call us at 718. I don't even know where that zip code is. That number is 818-794-0722. I should have had confidence. I doubted myself, and then I spun out about it. 818-794-0722. And please, like I was saying, check out the Patreon. It has been absolutely lovely connecting with more of you folks, and we talk about all the art we have enjoyed before. And if you don't want to be a patron, if you can't afford to be a patron, I know it's the holidays. I appreciate, I understand. Do leave a like and rate this here podcast, because that helps other people find it, and that helps the show grow, and it helps just everything in general. So that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening, and thank you, as always, to Comic Books for existing. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
If you're enjoying this podcast or any podcasts on the Dragon Wagon Radio Network, be sure to check out the Dragon Wagon shop. You can tout your podcast pride while supporting your favorite indie podcast network. Make sure to check it often for new items and limited time designs. So shop now at dragonwagonshop.com. Get your dragon swag on.
It's Dragon Wagon.